Hello. My screen is freezing a bit, so I was just waiting to see if it caught up enough so I could talk. I'm going to talk to you like we don't know each other. And hopefully, by the time I'm done, I will have covered my situation in such a way that I can refer people to this video so that I do not have to continue to repeat myself. It may not be in my best interest to do this video at this particular moment because there's a part of me that's actually kind of angry. My name is Elizabeth Elron, by the way. Nice to meet you. I'm angry because there are people who have scammed people by saying that they have dealt with cancer. There's a woman who is going to jail for doing just that. Apparently she created documents, the whole works. She probably has even raised more money for her phony illness than I have raised for my real one. I've been very frustrated with trying to raise money, and I'll try to explain to you more my situation from start to finish without all the gory details, but enough of them that hopefully you get a sense. And someone was nice enough to want to try to do a fundraiser for me and was asking me today, how, if I had a hysterectomy, can I still have ovarian cancer? My understanding is that there are ovarian cells that are down there, and I guess if it had been contained to the ovaries, maybe it would have been different, but what I dealt with was not contained to the ovaries. Even if I was to wind up having cancer in some other part of my body at this point, even another organ, like so, let's just, I don't want to say it, but let's just say liver. It wouldn't be liver cancer. It would still be ovarian cancer. I can't explain to you what this is exactly. I'm not a doctor. Quite frankly, all I know is that I'm dealing with it. Do I really care how I'm dealing with it other than to know that I am? No, not really. I probably could be a much better educated person if I thought it would make a difference. And I guess in time, if there's reasons for me to understand things better, I will. I know what stage I was diagnosed at initially. I do not know if it's changed. I don't want to know. It's not going to change anything about my situation. So I have, from day one, made a blog. It was called anewme515.blogspot.com. I have since bought the domain name relatetocancer.com. Same real estate on the internet. Both those names take you to that same place. Since day one, I knew I needed to write about what was going on. But on day one, I wrote anonymously. On day one, there was no pictures of me. There was not my name. There was not my business name. There was nothing about me personally to identify me. It was just me talking about my situation. It became clear in time that if I wanted help, I was going to need to let people know what was going on with me in a much more transparent way. In addition, I told people about the blog because the one thing that you will discover if you're ever in this position is that the last thing you want to do, especially if it's something that isn't particularly good news, the last thing you want to do is to have to repeat yourself over and over and over again. And people have the best of intentions. They're being kind. They're being interested. I get all that. But it's really, 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 really hard to have to go there over and over and over and over again. I have tried to do different things to help that. But I guess I haven't found the one just yet because I haven't kept up with it. Now, with the way things are at the moment, one of two things is going to happen. Maybe there's more, but there's two obvious things. One, things are going to continue downward decline, and things are going to get worse. Or B, I'm going to have some sort of miracle and find my way to the other side of this once and for all. For the sake of myself and the sake of anybody who cares about me, of course I'm rooting for B. To be or not to be, that is the question. So, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer May of 2012. I had been having issues for a while. There are a lot of symptoms about ovarian cancer, which I have posted in other places I'm not going to go into in this video. But I had several symptoms that I did not know were ovarian cancer. And I probably had it for several years, quite frankly. But the symptoms were getting worse. So for several months before I was actually diagnosed, I had gone to the doctor. I had been coughing. I got an antibiotic. It seemed to help, but then when I stopped taking it, not so much. I was told to go to a GI doctor. He was very arrogant and basically told me I had to do what he wanted me to do, and he insisted that he do a colonoscopy, which it turns out was unnecessary because when he got done, he said everything looked pretty much okay and told me to be on my way. Even though at that point I could barely eat, which actually is a major sign of ovarian cancer. At the point that I was there, I had probably about 7 pounds of fluid in my stomach, which he should have been able to detect from what I can tell, but apparently did not. So, anyway, my block is 515 because on 514 is when I found out I had a 10-centimeter tumor on my ovary. Now, for anybody who doesn't know centimeters, I think that's about 4 inches in inch terms. So it was a pretty significant one. My gynecologist earlier in the year, had she pushed down on my ovary area, probably would have detected it, but she hadn't done that either. So, I found out about the tumor. Didn't automatically mean I was dealing with cancer. It probably looked like cancer, but just because it looked like it, you can't tell until you do some sort of tissue work. So, given the way things looked, I was told that I needed to have a hysterectomy. At the point I was at, I just said, fine, take it. You know, if that's going to help me, take it. I was actually really hoping that by taking everything, I'd be done with it and I wouldn't have to worry about chemo. Well, I had the surgery. I was in the hospital for 17 wonderfully not days. And was told to go home, get better, because I would need to come back in about a month and start chemo treatments. And they were going to give me 2 particular chemotherapies, which I think are pretty much standard protocol for ovarian cancer. One was carboplatin, one was Taxol. So I wasn't thrilled because I didn't want to do chemo. And I wouldn't have done chemo if it wasn't for the fact that they told me that they had kind of gotten it all, but there were some things that were suspect, so they pretty much said, you should get the chemo. So, in the middle of the anguish and anxiety and everything I went through to heal to the point that I did, I also didn't really have it in me to try to figure out anything else. I was really scared. And I think on some level it was fear that drove me to that choice. Regardless, I chose it. I am a hypnotist in part by trade. That's the right wording, but basically, I'm a hypnotist. A damn good one at that, actually. And wanted to use hypnosis for treatment. And I wanted to try to even save my hair because once upon a time I used to have this gorgeous long mane. Believe me, of course, had to happen. Well, I did the treatment, and within the context of the hypnosis, I was listening to recordings every time I'd go for treatment, and did pretty okay, all things considered. I did some alternative supplements, I did the hypnosis, I did whatever I could for myself. Unfortunately, I still lost my hair. Now, people ask me sometimes, did the hypnosis help? Well, I'd have to have two identical me's having the identical experience except for one with hypnosis and one without. And that's not possible. So if I can't really compare, how do I really know? I know that I was told I was handling things much better than people thought I should. And I just felt like, oh, and then another thing too that's kind of tangible is a lot of times when you get your blood pressure taken before and after chemo, your blood pressure is actually higher, more times than not, because I was listening to these recordings during the time I was being treated. When I was done, my blood pressure was actually lower, which really surprised people more times than not. And when I lost my hair, part of what I had written in my scripting of my recording for myself was that chemo would get to whatever cells it needed to. They say it's good to get to all the cells that it needs to. So I didn't want it to say, no, it's not going to touch the follicles in my hair, and then for some reason find out later that, maybe it should have. So I basically said it would do what it needed to do. I decided to treat chemo as an ally and as a friend. And about halfway through my treatments, I forget what they call it, platinum? Yeah. I don't know what it's called, but there's some sensitivity you can get to the chemos like carboplatin. And I was sitting in a chair and my hands started to itch and the bottom of my feet started to itch. And if I hadn't said anything, I don't know what would have happened, but probably not good things. So it turned out that I had sensitivity. So they decided to replace the carboplatin with another drug, which was called Gemzar. In the midst of all this, I wound up getting myself a nice little chemotherapy port. Now, as I think about this, a lot of times you can see someone's port because what happens is, and I'm gonna get up here, is that the port will be somewhere visible here, but I didn't want it to be visible here. So I wanted it in my arm, and they couldn't get it in my arm. So I told them I wanted it as low as I could possibly go. Now, I've never showed anybody this, but I'm actually thinking that this might be a good time to do this because of the fact that maybe it would give a little credence to what I'm talking about and the fact that I'm genuinely dealing with this. So anyway, here we go. So if you can see, there's a little sliced little scar there, and the port thing is right here. And quite frankly, I hate even touching it. So you can probably see it a little bit there. So excuse me. So anyway, I don't think I showed anything too horrendous, although I imagine maybe there were people who are uncomfortable, in which case I do apologize. But anyway, I would not have that if I could help. As a matter of fact, I agonized over getting what I call ultimately portified. But it got to the point where my veins weren't allowing themselves to be open to me getting the IVs I needed to get the chemotherapy, which in my case was liquid chemotherapy. I don't know, most people don't know what chemotherapy is. I don't know if they think it's pills or whatever, but it's actually a liquid, so it's intravenously insert it in your body. So I got to the point about halfway through where I needed to get the port. And I didn't want to, but I did. So around the end of November, actually, it was right before Thanksgiving, I had my last chemotherapy treatment. And I had a scan scheduled for the beginning of December. At the beginning of December, I got the scan and I was clear. Everybody was like, "Woo, yay! Everything's wonderful, great, now you can get on with your life." If you read my blog at relatetocancer.com, you'll discover that it wasn't quite like that. Chemotherapy can affect people sometimes for a very long time after treatment. I think they've said in some cases up to 10 years. Chemo brain for me was very real. Something else I also talked about in my blog. Losing my hair was very real. I even showed myself in varying stages with no eyebrows and no hair and looking crappy and different wigs. And I showed myself at the treatment. I showed myself being hooked up. I suppose there's some really good actors out there, and there's some people who could fake it really good. But I was trying my best to give validity to my situation. I was trying my best to share for the sake of anybody it would be helpful to. And I was also giving up my privacy, which I had very mixed feelings about and still do to this day, because it gets really frustrating to have to sort of defend myself and talk about this stuff. But I've also come to realize I think it's important, and I do my best to go there. But I have these moments that kind of frustrate and sometimes infuriate me, though thankfully they're fewer and farther between, because when you get to the point you really are truly dealing with cancer, you really do learn what's important, and you try to really figure those things out. So anyway, I was clear, got a little stamp, everything was looking good. A few months later, I don't know when it was, February, March, April, May, somewhere in there. And so many details I don't exactly remember specifically, but my blog, if you're interested, will give you all the details you want. I found out that there were 3 spots. I even put a little picture of the 3 spots on my blog. And at the time, the doctors weren't saying it was back exactly. They kind of were, but they kind of said maybe it's not anything, but we're going to have to watch. And basically, we're going to invite you back every 3 months, but now we're going to watch you every 1 month. So my computer just went out. So you probably saw me, but I couldn't see me. I guess I've been talking for 18 minutes now. So I guess it's just going to be a long video. So we'll see if I can wrap it up soon here. But so I went back, and they weren't liking what they were seeing. There's a tumor marker called CA125 that had gone up from what it had been. After I had had my surgery, it went way down. I figured if it was in the thousands or 1,000 something or whatever, but it was way up there when I was first diagnosed. But after surgery, it went way down. The high side of normal is like 35, I believe. And I was doing okay, except that it was starting to go up. So they suggested that I try this thing. I think we just kind of watched it a little bit before we did anything, but then they suggested I try this thing called Avastin. Avastin is not chemo, but it's intravenously given. And it has its own side effects. For me, one of them is that I'm extremely tired a lot of the time. It can also raise your blood pressure. It can do other not so good things. It can wind you up in the hospital having to have major surgery because it's doing stuff to your intestines and your digestive tract and all kinds of good stuff. So I didn't want to be on that either, but I reluctantly went on that because, if it could help, then okay. So I took it for a few rounds, and the number seemed to be going down, so that was good. So then it was suggested to me that I have a talk with a surgeon to see if surgery was an option. And around that time, I'd also gotten another PET scan. Well, when I sat down with the surgeon, he was very frank with me and told me that there were 5 spots. A couple had gotten bigger from the time I had had the scan before. He didn't know if the Avastin was really helping or not because they didn't do things quite the way they should have, which has been to get a scan right before the Avastin. I had had the scan, didn't do anything, and then had the Avastin at some point. So, and he highly recommended that I do chemo because, from what he said, surgery, at least the type of surgery he could do, wasn't really an option. And it wasn't an option because there were too many spots. Also, there were some spots that weren't considered operable, and it just didn't really make any sense. There is another surgery called HIPEC surgery, and it's the kind of surgery that is very major surgery. You're on the table for a good 10, 12 or more hours while they cut you open, cut out the spots they can get to, pour in warmed up chemo, seal you up, wrap you around the table for a while, unseal you up, take out the chemo, seal you up, cross their fingers, send you off to repair, hopefully, and send you on your way. And there are people who have been known to die from the surgery. There are people who have known to die from infections at the hospital after the surgery. It burns the inside of your body. It is major, heavy-duty stuff. Even the consultation for the surgery, I think, is a good couple of hours even. So, and they need a CAT scan, because PET scans tell you where there's like hot spots, where there's looks like there's cancer, but it's not 3-dimensional. The CAT scan will tell you if it's 3-dimensional or not. So, he tells me, I recommend you get on chemo. And, by the way, there are 4 things that can happen when you go on chemo. 1, it will take care of the cancer, which he almost immediately said, probably not going to happen here. 2, it will minimize what is going on, but it won't go away. 3, it'll stay static. Nothing will change. It won't get worse. It won't get better. It'll just be what it is. And 4, it won't do anything. So, imagine, if you will, you hear this, and this is the first time that you're hearing this. And you're thinking that there's potential options. You're not realizing that you're pretty much hearing that you're going to be on chemo the rest of your life if you get on chemo, is essentially what he's saying. Now, having been on chemo before, it took me away from me. It affected me so much that if I knew that I only had X amount of time to go, I think I'd want to live life without the chemo because I feel like I would want to be me. I would not want to be sleeping all the time. I would not, as it is, even on the Avastin, I sleep a hell of a lot more than I want to sleep. But at least I feel somewhat able to function. There are some people who wonder, I look pretty good in pictures. I look pretty healthy, How could she possibly be sick? I think, too, when you look at somebody and they look healthy, you think, well, of course they're okay, because you don't want to have to think about the fact that you could look healthy and you could be sick, too. But the fact is that there is stuff going on in my body. So there have been days I've been known to sleep for 15 hours with this Avastin. There's somebody online who's written something, I wish I could remember her name, but it's called the spoon theory. So maybe you can look it up if you're interested. And she talks about having an invisible illness. I think she has fibromyalgia or something like that. And she talks about how it's like you have X amount of spoons in a day. So let's say you have 10. Everything that you do in that day is going to cost you spoons. Even getting out of bed is going to cost you a spoon. If you have trouble moving, putting on that sweater and buttoning it up is going to cost you a spoon. Everything is going to cost you. A lot of times people don't realize how the things that you take for granted actually add up. So I find myself, if I know I'm going to do X on a certain day, I don't do a heck of a lot several days before because I store up the energy. If I don't manage to do that, then I pay the cost on the other side of things because then it's taken so much out of me that I can't do anything for the next few days and I wind up staying in bed. people can't possibly know all this because there's not a camera and I don't do a reality show. But, and they see me blogging and they see me doing videos and everything else, so they think everything is probably just fine. But it's not. Also, I could still be a coach. I could still be a hypnotist. I could still do certain things. I would wind up probably doing them from bed because there's times that my back, even though they tell me now that it has nothing to do with the chemo, I have a hard time believing it because I've only started since then. I have trouble sitting for long periods of time. I have trouble sitting in certain chairs. I wind up doing a lot from my bed. So, if I ever wanted to go out and try to get like a real job, I don't see how I could possibly do it. There are times in the middle of the day, my eyes will want to close. I'll be on the road and it could be sunny and it could be the middle of the day and I'll suddenly get really tired. It is really hard to function. It's unpredictable, and although there might be a little bit of predictability of when it's going to be worse, but it's still unpredictable because it still occurs. And again, I have to store up these blocks of energy. So if I was going to actively have clients, it could be kind of challenging. I mean, I'd be willing to give it a shot because I actually prefer that to begging for money, except that I think a lot of people see me dealing with cancer and just go, oh, no, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that negativity, And this is part of what bothers me too, because I'm a human being. I'm dealing with something. I mean, in some ways, it's like, I don't know, you still deal with somebody who deals with a cold, you still talk to them, you'd still do business with them, but I think people keep a distance. I also think too, to be nice about it, I think sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to bother her either. So I worked for myself before I was diagnosed. Now I'm pretty much out of business. I have a creative side called Sedona. I have tried to get things going that way. And anything in terms of business takes time, it takes energy. I am not a lazy person. I have a lot of stuff on the web. I've done a lot of things over the years. I just only have so much energy to expend now. And sadly, I think people see me and think, well, I'm the same as she is. I'm trying to start a business too, or they think, oh, she's tired. Well, I know how tired it is too. They think I'm the same, but not really. And they don't get it because it's part of a bigger picture that they can't possibly understand. Actually, this feels kind of good to have this conversation of sorts. So, okay, so I'm trying to think where I should go with this. So basically, the way things stand right now, and hopefully I haven't left any unfinished ends there, but the way things stand right now is I'm getting the Avastin treatments. The last Avastin treatment I had, my tumor marker was actually up, which is the wrong direction for it to be going in. The only options that I may have access to, and the one in particular the doctor is pushing is chemo. And the other one is potentially the surgery I was mentioning, neither of which is really enticing because even with the surgery, there's no guarantee that when I come out of it, I won't be dealing with cancer. And I'll be feeling even worse having to heal from something that major. So they wanted to do a PET scan. And I pretty much told them I don't want to do one. I think they think I'm in denial. And it's not denial. It's like, what is the point? If you get a scan and it tells you something's worse, then what? It's not like I can do anything about it because I'm pretty much kind of have it in my head at this point that if it's going to go that way, then I'm going to say sayonara. It's not that I want to, but I just can't see doing it. So, I'm open to miracles, I'm open to prayers, I'm open to Reiki, I'm open to all kinds of things. I will tell you that I'm very aware of a lot of different things. A lot of different things also cost money, of which I have been begging for money for months. I had some savings when this all started, and I've managed to get this far because of the money that I've been able to ascertain, or people have been willing to donate to me, and I am eternally grateful, because I didn't even know how I was going to get through 2012, and here I am at the beginning of 2014. But I am also at my last $2,000 as I am leaving this video. So, hearing noise. Well, I live with a friend, so I don't know if you can hear that stuff. But that's that's the last money I have in the bank, and I have offered to give anybody anything that they feel they need to have proof that I am dealing with something. I have tried to work for money. I have tried the Sedona. I have tried to do the hypnotist thing. I have, I want to get back on the road. I took a trip back in October when I never finished telling that part of the story. So let me backtrack. So when the surgeon said what he did about the 4 things that could happen or not happen with chemo, I was devastated, and I went into this huge abyss, and felt like, what was the point of even trying to survive if I was going to be diminished? I didn't want to watch myself suffer. And within a couple of days, I got myself together. I wanted to always take a cross-country trip, and I pretty much decided that I was going to do just that. And I raised some money, and I got on the road, and I went with someone from the Washington D.C. area down to Savannah, and then I took a car by myself from Savannah all the way across the southern U.S. to Los Angeles, and then up to Seattle. And my whole intention was just to live life and just to see where it took me. It wasn't like I was trying to find myself or find the meaning of life or anything. I was just, if I was going to die, I was going to do this. I knew if I did the surgery, if I did chemo, if I had the chance to do it, then it was going to be time. Nobody wanted me to take that trip, but I did. And I didn't have enough money. I didn't raise enough money, so I wound up charging what I could on my credit cards so that I could take the trip. So now, of course, I have credit card debt, which people wonder about that. People are like, give up the cards. Well, if I gave up the cards, I would never have the opportunity to take that trip. So I'm trying to do right by that. I'm also in the process of filing for disability, and that's a whole other story. So anyway, I came back from the trip. My tumor marker was actually lower than when I left, which was probably about 3 months from when I had my last Avastin. So I felt good. I looked good. My tumor marker was good. Everything seemed good. And then 3 weeks later, my tumor marker was the worst it's been since my surgery in 2012. So reluctantly, I went back on Avastin. And my most recent Avastin, like I think I said, my tumor marker was actually went higher. So where I stand now, and why I'm partially creating this video, is, as I said at the very beginning of this, things are going to go one of 2 ways. Things are going to continue to go a direction I don't want them to, which was A. And then B, maybe I'll find some miracle. I am doing my best to live life to the fullest, and I constantly am blogging. I would love to write a book. It is just really, 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 really hard to try to survive. You think the business of living is hard? Try survival. It sucks. So it's really hard for me to, with the limited energy I have, to do the things I need to kind of keep up with stuff. And I'm not even keeping up. I haven't done my taxes in like 3 years now. It will be 3 years this year. And I want to do them. I should do them. I don't know if it's going to really matter because I haven't really been making money. But the fact remains is, my personal life is a mess. I haven't been able to, a lot of things I do, like there's one little financial aid thing I can get once a month that gives me a little extra money. I usually do it at the very last second because because it's just the way it works. A lot of times I just do something at the very last moment because that's what I need. I know it needs to get done, so I have to push through whatever I have to push through so that it gets done. So, I don't know what other questions you have. I'm kind of immersed in this now so much that I can't necessarily see the forest for the trees. I would never have thought of the question that somebody might ask, like, how in the world could she have ovarian cancer? She doesn't have ovaries. Maybe there's other reasons you're skeptical about what I'm going through. And I want you to know that if there's any chance that you could help me, I want you to have peace of mind. I want you to know that I'm legit. I have people who have been with me in the hospital. Actually, I just had this thought. I have a nice little hysterectomy scar down the middle of my stomach I could show you. Oh, do I want to show you that? I've already shown you my port. I will save that one. But if anybody wants proof, I have Skype, and I can show you if you want it. So, there's all kinds of ways I'd be happy to prove this to you, and that it's real, and that it's legitimate. And I'm noticing that this video has been almost 40 minutes long now. So, with that, I think I will end this, but I guess if you want, email me at e@jolope, JOLOPE.com. Stands for joy, love, and peace. With any questions you have. If you have questions, feel free to ask. If you have questions about what I did, like I said, I don't always want to know everything. People talk so much about the what do you call it? The gene, the BRCA gene. There's a good chance, from what I know, I probably have that. But I don't want to know. I don't want to know if I have it. And again, do certain facets really matter? In the grand scheme of things, if you're dealing with something you're dealing with, it doesn't really matter how you got there. And there's a whole section in my blog where I talk about how I feel about all of that as well. So the blog, again, was relatedtocancer.com. I talk about a lot of different things at this point. There's over 1,000 blog entries. There's over 125 videos. And there's just a lot of stuff there. And if it's overwhelming or emotional and you don't want to go there, don't. But there are statistics that say 1 in 3 women and 1 in 2 men, and I've heard in some cases just 1 in 2 people will deal with cancer in their lifetime. So odds are, if you haven't dealt with it, or anybody who's dealt with it, you've been quite fortunate. But there may come a time where it will happen, and it will probably shock the hell out of you in so many different ways. And the people you think are there for you are not, and the people that you would never expect to be there will be, and people will say the most stupid things to you in the interest of trying to help you. You will just be incredulous, and you'll be incredulous in part because nobody, I shouldn't say this, like I always say nobody, but it's not true. It's not quite nobody, but there's a lot of nobodies who don't talk about this stuff. I didn't know this stuff. I didn't know chemo would affect me for months after treatment. It's just, there's just a lot of stuff, you don't know until you know. And I don't know if knowing ahead of time helps, but I think if you at least know, you have a chance of potentially being different as a result. So the last thing I'll say is, if you are interested in helping, there are 3 ways that you can help. One is through the Cancer Support Foundation. They have it so that if you just donate money in my name, you can use it as a tax-deductible write-off. You can send something through PayPal. My PayPal address is thankyou@jolope.com, JOLOPE.com. Or I have a GoFundMe page, gofundme.com/RIOJ8. So like Rio, like the river, J as in John, the number 8. And you can do it that way. If you have any questions, Again, e@jalopy.com. I don't know really what else to say. So if, I don't know who's going to get this far, because it's a really long video at this point, but if you got this far, I appreciate you taking the time. I sent you here because I didn't want to have to repeat everything. Hopefully there'll become a day where I can do a video and just tell you about how wonderful everything is, but until then, we're just going to kind of go with it's just sort of like in this general theme area and leave it at that. So I probably should have said that in the beginning, because who knows if anybody will actually come here. But maybe I'll just tell people to just skip to the end to get this part too, if they don't want to hear the rest. But anyway, so I guess that's about it. I guess I'll upload this to my YouTube channel and see what happens. So money is good. Anybody wants to try to do some fundraising for me is good. Prayers are good. Reiki is good. If you want to pray for me at your church, that's great. I don't mind hearing about certain things that you think could help, maybe. It's a little sketchy because, as you can imagine, I'm kind of a walking target for people's solutions. But as long as you understand that that's the case, then don't take it personally if I don't go anywhere with something. It's just a really hard balancing act. And at this point, I just want to live, and I don't want to just be alive. I want to live. And I am going to do everything I can to do just that. And with any luck at all, I'll get to do it for quite some time. And if not, well, you'll see this and you'll know what happened. So, anyway, lots of love to you. Thank you for your understanding and your love. And I guess I'll end this before it gets to be 45 minutes long. Bye.